Hello and welcome back to the Asylum. As you probably know, today is Juneteenth. Now, if you don't know, Juneteenth is a holiday celebrating the end of slavery that was established in 1965. The holiday, that is, just after the Civil War was won by the North. Of course, the end of this slavery is most certainly, definitely something that should be celebrated because slavery is a terrible, terrible, awful thing that should never have been put into practice ever. And the U.S. is actually one of the first countries to completely abolish slavery, which is amazing, a great thing. Great thing we did. But sadly, there are a lot of people out there who think that the U.S. is the epitome of racism and even claim that the U.S., the colonies, the original colonies, way back then, we came up with the idea of slavery. As in, it was our original idea. In the 17th century, the colonists decided to force people to work for them without paying them. That is a real thing that people think. You're probably rolling your eyes so far back that you can see the inside of your head. I mean, just utterly stupid and completely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I myself was a little bit shocked by the stupidity at first, but then after thinking about it for like 4 seconds, I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Not really surprising, seeing as how there are people who think Abraham Lincoln was a racist and a slave owner. Abraham Lincoln, as in the President of the United States of America during the Civil War, who gave the Emancipation Proclamation. Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipator. Thank you, school system, you have failed us again. But yeah, while giving a speech at the Senate on Tuesday, Tim Kaine, whom I've never heard of till today researching this video, claimed that America created slavery as its own original thing. Yeah, let's take a look at what he had to say. Oh boy.
Young women, one a high schooler and one a middle schooler in my hometown. The rally was one of numerous marches and rallies that have occurred every day, sometimes multiple times a day, in Richmond in the weeks after the horrific public murder of George Floyd. Hundreds of people gathered in the Maggie L. Walker Plaza, a plaza named after a pioneering African-American woman, business and civil rights leader. They gathered in the plaza to hear from our city's young people. Many raised their hands when they were asked. They were graduates of this class of 2020, a class whose senior year was upended in mid-March and who face a future that frankly seems very, very frightening to many of them. I attended to listen. I used to be the mayor and governor and now a senator, but I attended as a neighbor to listen. I wasn't on the program and I didn't ask to speak. I wanted to hear how our young people view this moment in time and what they are asking of us. What I heard in many different ways from speeches and artistic performances was no more politics as usual. No more politics as usual. No more police killings of people of color. No more empty promises of reform after each new policing outrage. No more education system that downplays the reality of injustice in this country since its birth. No more educational content that also downplays the contributions of African Americans, Indians, Latinos, and others to our nation. No more veneration of the Confederacy in Richmond, in Virginia, or anywhere else in the United States. This gathering, this rally, had a lot of police there. The police were there trying to keep the crowd from spilling from the plaza onto the busy Broad Street where they would have been endangered by passing vehicles. Some of the attendees of the rally advocated to defund the police, but others disagreed. Some asserted all cops are bad, but others disagreed. The rally was robust, it was raw, it was diverse, and it was respectful. It was the epitome, the absolute epitome of peacefully assembling to petition government for redress of grievances contemplated by the First Amendment. Just as my young activists urged in many different ways to end politics as usual. I desperately want to end apathy as usual. Apathy of the citizenry is a chief guarantor of politics as usual. And in the tremendous energy demonstrated by these Richmonders and demonstrated on the streets of communities all over this country, I'm starting to be hopeful about the end of apathy as usual. These young people, they want action and results, and they deserve it. That's why I'm proud to join Senators Booker and Harris and many others in supporting the Justice and Policing Act of 2020. We need to ban chokeholds. We need to ban no-knock warrants. We need to ban racial and religious profiling. We need to hold police officers and police departments accountable for violent, reckless behavior. We need to promote better training and professional accreditation of police departments. Madam President, why do we demand that universities maintain accreditation to receive federal funds, but make no such demand of law enforcement agencies?
Okay, so obviously he does not like the police. I mean, he sounded very disappointed when he said that some people disagree with the defunding of the police, like me. He also sounded pretty sad that a lot of people don't think that all cops are evil, which most of them aren't. We can't just let one bad cop define the entire force, the entire department. We just can't. I mean, that's like saying, well, 9/11 was done by Muslims, so all Muslims must be terrorists, which is absolutely not true. That's not how that works. He also wants to ban chokeholds, which can come in pretty handy when dealing with a violent criminal, and racial slash religious profiling, which can come in handy when trying to find a criminal. I mean, what he's saying here, a conversation between a cop and a victim would go something like, what did the person who killed your husband look like, ma'am? Oh, well, I think he was black. Black? Oh, sorry, man, but we can't do anything about this case if it involves a black man, because if we catch him, then we'll be branded as racists. So, have a good day. Absolutely idiotic. I do, however, agree with holding people responsible for their actions and giving cops better training. That's like the only intelligent thing that he said this entire interview. Anything else?
We need to do much more within the criminal justice system, but also within all of our systems, to dismantle the structures of racism that our federal, state, and local governments carefully erected and maintained over centuries. We know a little bit about this in Virginia. The first African Americans into the English colonies came to Point Comfort, Virginia in 1619. They were slaves. They'd been captured against their will, but they landed in colonies that didn't have slavery. There were no laws about slavery in the colonies at that time. The United States didn't inherit slavery from anybody. We created it. It got created by the Virginia General Assembly and the legislatures of other states. It got created by the court systems in colonial America and since that enforced fugitive slave laws. We created it. And we created it and maintained it over centuries. And in my lifetime, we have finally stopped some of those practices, but we've never gone back to undo it. Stopping racist practices at year 350 of 400 years, but then taking no effort to dismantle them is not the same as truly combating racism.
But we did stop them. We did dismantle them. Racism is no longer a thing in this country. This systemic racism is not real in the United States anymore. This has been... I don't know how people can still believe this. I don't know why it's so hard to understand. I mean, does he want us to go back in time and stop it from happening before, like Back to the Future? Well, okay, sure, we could do that. You want to invent a time machine? You want to advance technology about 400 years? Feel free to do that. But, I mean, geez, seriously. I'm not entirely sure if he really believes what he's saying right now, in which case he's an idiot, or if he's just spouting out propaganda trying to earn woke points, which is a possibility and, in all honesty, a probability. There's just so much wrong with what he said. I mean, he even contradicted himself right before he said America created slavery. He said they brought slaves over, but we didn't have any slave laws, so we created slavery, and the rest of the world was like, oh, let's do that too. They brought slaves over, which suggests that they had slaves before us, which suggests slavery was a thing before it became to the United States. They brought slaves over, and then we created slavery. I can't even comprehend how that works. Oh, they have a thing. Now we have that thing. Now we invented that thing because we have that thing. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. I mean, what? How did it even come to this conclusion? It's completely historically incorrect. Like I said earlier in another video, slavery is one of the oldest practices of humanity. And, I mean, look at the Egyptians, the Romans. Literally, any large kingdom or empire in the history of the world practiced slavery in some way, shape, form, or fashion. There are still countries out there today that still openly practice slavery. I mean, India, China, Pakistan, Russia all still have slavery and are all still pretty racist countries. And nobody says anything about them. I mean, the left would rather whine, complain, and lie about slavery and racism in the United States than address real slavery and real racism that is happening in other parts of the world. The countries listed above, they are really racist and they are slave owners. The United States has stopped that practice long before anybody else. But for some reason, they just cannot comprehend it. They cannot accept that the United States is actually a good place to be in. I can't really put into words how disappointed and disgusted I am with the media and the far left for trying to push this narrative. As I say far too often, this is hypocrisy at its finest. They will protect China, they will support China, even though they're racist and they still have slaves, but they will hate America for being racist and having slaves that one time a while ago. Hypocrisy at its finest. Thank you for listening to my rant. Thank you for watching my video. And be sure to head over to my channel and check out my other videos. I think they're pretty okay, you know. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell notification to get notified when I put up any new videos. And till next time, have a good day. Remember, racism is not a thing in this country anymore. Systemically, that is. Okay, bye.